Number 1. The Simple Story. My story is simple. I apologize that there isn't going to be any build-up. I apologize that there isn't going to be any mysterious person sighted sneaking around the house. And I apologize that there's not going to be an ironic twist at the end. My name is Brittany, and this happened to me when I was 12. It was just an ordinary night. My parents told me it was time to go to bed. So I went and brushed my teeth and washed up and got ready to go to sleep. I had a great room. It was all decorated with strawberry shortcake themes, including a canopy bed. I told my parents I was getting into bed. I turned off the light, covered up, grabbed onto my favorite stuffed animal, and went to bed. Something woke me up in the middle of the night. I had one of those old-style alarm clocks that had a regular face and bells on the top. Therefore, it wasn't digital, and I couldn't make out the face, and therefore I didn't know what time it was. The meager light coming in through the window did nothing to help me out. But it did let me see that there was a man standing in my room. He was a really big man, and I didn't recognize him at all. He was dressed in black, but he wasn't wearing a mask. He had gray hair and mutton chops, and he was holding a knife. I made to scream, but before I had a chance to, the man grabbed me and put his hand tightly over my mouth. He roughly flipped me over onto my stomach. I then felt the tip of the knife as it first touched my neck, and then it pressed tightly against my neck. It hurt, and I whimpered. I also felt tears running down my face because at that point I knew that I was going to die. I had no idea if he was going to do anything beforehand, but I honestly wasn't thinking about that. Everything flashed through my head that I had wanted to do in life, and I just knew then I wouldn't be able to do any of it. As I lay there, the man began pressing hard on my back with his other hand, the knife up against my neck. He wasn't trying to fill me up or anything. He was just pressing hard on my back and keeping the knife tightly pressed against my throat. I had no thoughts that he was going to try and rape me or anything, just that he was going to kill me. And then I heard a loud bang, and the knife fell off my neck. The pressure of the hand holding me subsided. I wasn't sure what was going on, but someone grabbed me and pulled me out of the bed. It was my mom, and she was telling me to just come with her, and everything would be fine. My mom took me down to the living room and out the front door. In moments, the police arrived and ran into the house. I was still terrified, wondering where my dad was and what was really going on. Well, my dad was in my room. Apparently, the intruder had broken through the back kitchen door. My mom had gotten up and seen that someone had broken in. She ran to get my father, who in turn got his gun and searched the house. He, of course, searched my room first and immediately found the intruder. The bang was my dad shooting the asshole who had the knife against my neck. The man didn't die. I can't say I'm happy about that. He was obviously willing to kill me, so I've always wished the gunshot would have killed him. I've never wished death on anyone else. I don't even support the death penalty. But I really wish after what that man was going to do to me that the gunshot would have killed him. He did go to jail, though, for a very long time. However, that jail sentence didn't help me at all. It didn't stop me from having nightmares nightly for years afterwards. It didn't make it easier for me to trust people I didn't know. It didn't make it easier for me to be alone. It didn't pay for the therapy that I've had in the past 35 years. It didn't do any of those things. But my dad and the gunshot saved my life. And I appreciate both of those things more than I can ever tell you. Number 2. Repeat pizza. When I was 16, my parents decided to go away on a second honeymoon. I guess they hadn't done it any sooner because they didn't feel like they could leave me alone in the house. For many years I was too young to be home alone, and they didn't want to hire a babysitter to be with me for a week. Even when I was 15, they were worried that I would be throwing parties. I guess when they finally accepted the fact that I was a video game playing book reader, that they didn't have to worry about that. So they left. I was having a pretty fun Friday night, just sitting in the living room and playing video games. I can't say I recall exactly what game I was playing. I play so many that it's not always easy to keep track. Suddenly, someone rang the doorbell. I got up, not really thinking about it, but was surprised when I saw a pizza guy at the door. He was a big and older guy, looked to be in his 40s maybe. A lot older than I would normally expect a pizza delivery guy to be. He told me that he had my pizza. I didn't order a pizza, I told him. I was a bit confused. I knew that people ordering pizzas and having them sent to other people's homes was an old school sort of prank. But since just about everyone pays with credit cards nowadays, I really didn't think it was a prank I would ever experience. "Oh, well, that's weird," the guy said to me. "Well, it is paid for, and it's supposed to be delivered to this address, so I guess you'd get a free pizza." I wasn't going to turn down a free pizza. I went ahead and took it, thanked the guy, and went away. The following evening, I was once again playing video games when I heard the doorbell ring. I went over to see who it was, and was surprised that it was the exact same pizza delivery guy from the night before, and he had another pizza. "I didn't order this pizza either," I informed him, and he just shrugged his shoulders. "Your parents didn't order it?" he asked me. I told him no, my parents weren't at home. Something which was obviously stupid to tell him in retrospect. "I guess someone likes you," he informed me. "It's paid for again, so I guess you get another pizza." I was a 16-year-old boy, so having a whole pizza 2 nights in a row wasn't a bad thing as far as I was concerned. I honestly didn't even care who had sent it to me. My only complaint this time was that whoever it was didn't include chicken wings. So I took the pizza. I barely remember eating the pizza at all, to tell you the truth. The experience was all fuzzy, and I didn't even remember when I fell asleep. But I definitely remember waking up, and I'll never forget it. I was tied up and gagged and laying on the couch. It was weird because for a few moments I didn't even realize who I was. It had seemed like I was in this dark non-existence for a while, and then when I woke up, I was just there. It's so hard to explain if you've never gone through it before yourself. It literally took me a few moments to get my bearings and know what was going on. The house was ransacked. Things were broken, and I would find out later that things were missing. But the worst part is that there were 2 guys walking around the house. One of them was the pizza guy. It suddenly occurred to me that he must have drugged me and broken into the house. I tried my best to remember their features on the chance that if I got out of this, I could tell the police. I thought if they tied me up, at least that meant they weren't trying to kill me. They could have killed me when I was out. One of the guys turned towards me, and I quickly closed my eyes, though. I didn't want them to know I was awake. I heard one of them walk up to me, though, and something hit me hard in the head. Everything was black again. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. My parents were there. I was being treated for a concussion. Apparently, one of the guys noticed I was awake and knocked me out. They had drugged my pizza, and I still had traces of the drug in my system. I felt miserable. My neighbor had noticed a vehicle in the driveway and had called the police. My neighbors knew my parents were not at home and that I did not have a car. They got there while the burglars were leaving, and they were arrested. They called an ambulance for me. Although the burglars had gotten caught, it wasn't a win-win for my family. I mean, the concussion was dreadful, and many of our things had been broken. Plus, I had a really hard time being alone in the house after that, for a very long time. Number 3. The Bully. Hi, I'm Ethan. When I was growing up, I was definitely a bit of an unpopular and bookish sort. I got bullied a lot, and it was a shame because I actually enjoyed going to school. There was this one guy at school named Richard who always made going to school really suck. He was one messed up kid. He was always trying to get into fights with everyone. Once, on the way home from school, I saw him hanging out in an empty lot with his buddies, and they were torturing a bird. They had shot it with a BB gun and ripped its feathers out while it was still alive. And the guy obviously had severe mental issues. Fortunately for me, he and his friends did not catch me watching them, and I ran off as quickly as I could. In regards to me, he would call me all sorts of names, knock my books out of my hands, typical bully stuff. He would try to get me to fight him, but of course I never wanted to actually do that. When I was 13, my parents were going to be at a party very late one night. I was an only child, and they felt 13 was old enough to stay home alone, so they let me home. They gave me a number that I could call for emergencies, this was long before cell phones, and let me know that they wouldn't be home until very late, like in the morning late, actually. But that was okay with me. I would get to stay home and read. About an hour after my parents left, the phone began ringing. I answered it, and I froze when I recognized the voice as being Richard the bully. "Hey, dipshit, I know your parents aren't home tonight," he said to me. "No one is going to protect your ass now." I didn't even respond. I just hung up the phone. I walked away from the phone, but immediately when I did, it began ringing again. I picked it up, and it was Richard again. "Don't you dare hang up on me, you loser!" he screamed at me. "I'll rip your fingers off your body with a pair of pliers." I nervously told him that I would call the police if he tried to do anything to me. And I hung up the phone again. It immediately began ringing again, but I didn't want to answer it. And Richard was more persistent than I ever imagined anyone could be. The phone rang again and again. Not knowing what else to do, I picked up the phone and set the receiver down on the counter, and then went on my way. If I couldn't keep him from calling me, at least I could keep from hearing the phone. I went back to my reading and was surprised at how easily I was able to get Richard out of my mind. That was until, less than an hour later, I heard a knock on the door. I got up to answer it, but didn't open it as I saw Richard through the window. He was standing on the porch, holding a pair of pliers. "I warned you not to hang up on me again, you fucker," he yelled at me. "I'm gonna rip your fucking fingers off, all 10 of them. I felt my heart freeze. There was no way I was gonna let him in the house, but there was a chance he could break in. I ran into the kitchen and grabbed the phone. I hung it up, but when I took it back off the cradle, there was no dial tone. I tried clicking it a few times before it occurred to me that Richard must not have ever hung up his phone. Back then, if the caller never hung up, the receiving phone couldn't make another phone call. It was then that it got worse. I heard the glass break, and Richard actually broke the glass in the door. He began yelling at me, "After I take your fingers off, I'll use these pliers to rip your little dick off too." I didn't know what to do next. I couldn't call my parents. I couldn't call the police. I definitely couldn't get out of the house and run. My parents didn't have a gun. I couldn't fight Richard off. In the time between Richard breaking the window and him trying to get his hand on the doorknob, a million thoughts flashed through my mind. Finally, I got a flash of inspiration. I ran into the living room to the fireplace. I grabbed the poker, ran over to the door, and when he put his hand through the window, I hauled off and hit his hand as hard as I can, and he immediately recoiled. The stuff he began screaming at me then was much worse than anything I had heard before. Richard put his hand back through the window, and I hit it again. He was screaming and swearing, telling me all these horrible things that he was going to do to me. But he probably had a broken hand by that point. His screams attracted the attention of one of my neighbors, who came out of the house to see what was going on. I screamed out the door for them to call the police. Richard finally realized that he had lost, and he ran off. He was arrested, and he was sent to juvenile hall. Having him gone made going to school a lot more pleasant. Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please feel free to hit the button next to the tabby to be informed of new content. Feel free to follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter. If you have a story you would like me to read on Killer Orange Cat, feel free to email me at the email address provided below. Before I do anything else, I want to congratulate my good friend Blue Spooky on passing 10,000 subscribers. He really deserves it. He's one of the best out there. He and I will be doing a second collaboration about scary summer break stories coming up very soon. I hope that you will listen to both of them and enjoy it very much. As I mentioned before, I'm sorry for the inactivity. Between working on the King Spook collaboration, which I thank King Spook for including me on, and I was very honored to be a part of it, and my birthday plans, I got a little behind. I hope to finish May out strongly and have another video-heavy month in June. We'll see what happens. And remember to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.